What's going on, everybody out there? Happy to have you here on this, what is today, Thursday in the afternoon here in the States, and probably Friday morning over there in Australia. Happy to have you all here with us today. I got an awesome panel lined up to talk about the secret weapon and the HEX COM Fusion and what that means for the future of HEX. I would say within the last maybe 2 or 3 weeks or so, we've actually seen a breakthrough in not only the price of COM, but also in just like the general sentiment around it. I've seen a lot of new accumulation of COM because people are starting to finally get it. And I know Johnny Sachs is absolutely elated that finally he's been able to break through the noise, and some people actually poked their head up and listened. Also in other news today, it appears on-chain proof we have Godwale claiming all of his COM from his mega hex stakes. And it looks to be that he staked that COM, all of it actually. So we'll see what becomes of that. I thought that was a pretty big news piece here this morning, and we're actually seeing the price of COM go up on that news. So it's very exciting. In addition to that, somebody on RH Max's, shout out to RH Max, somebody was on in the chat the other day and coined the term the Quad Fathers, and I thought that was very appropriate to describe these top 30 or so wallets that have all been able to accumulate a quadrillion COM, which is like roughly 1% of the supply. It puts you in a whale position. I had Time Haven at time_haven on Telegram, on Twitter, on X, make a one of his league reports for COM about a week and a half or 2 weeks ago. And at the time, a quad costed roughly $40,000. Today, a quad is closer to $80,000. So it just in just a couple weeks since he made that post, we've seen the dollar value of COM rise significantly. So today we're going to go over what is COM, fundamentally, what is it? It's a tokenized T-share. We'll get into what that means. We have the dev Codeak here with us today to break it all down, kind of what inspired him to make this. I think he'll think it's pretty simple, but I think to us it means a lot more. So we're happy to have him on the show today too. And then we'll talk a little bit about, COM and HEX and why there's this synergy there that promotes long-term staking behavior and kind of this potential reward mechanism that we're seeing in this, something that Johnny Sachs has coined the coupon rate. Meaning if you go stake a max length stake today, currently the coupon rate is at 15%. So if you stake out $10,000 of HEX today for 15 years, you can get $1,500 back in COM because the price is set at a place where you're going to get $1,500 back of COM for staking your max length stake. So that's 15%. Now, as the price of COM goes up and down, that coupon rate changes, but it is the quad fathers that hold up and support the coupon rate in an effort to burn more and more HEX supply further out into the future, and thusly make HEX and COM more scarce, because both come into existence because of the T-share rate, which is deflationary and always becomes more and more difficult to acquire. So with that, I'm happy to bring on, and I will go through the chat while these guys are chatting, but I'm about to bring on Johnny Sachs, Crispy Man from hexfire.io, and Dev Codeak. What's going on, everybody?
Yo.
Hey.
Hey, kiss the ring. Quad fathers.
The quad fathers.
That's cool.
Hey, so who isn't excited about this COM, man? Of course, I always like green candles. Yeah, I'll just jump right in there. You guys tell me if I'm wrong about this. I started thinking, about how this is sort of like a leverage play against HEX, and that COM is going to run neck and neck with HEX. I don't know which one pushes and which one first, right? And how that relationship works, but I expect that this is just my own personal opinion, right? That HEX is going to go up in price. But doing a Quattro Cinco gives me all this COM that I think is also going to go up in price, and it makes me like so bullish that what I could be doing is just simply putting more and more of my HEX out Quattro Cinco. And listen, guys in the chat, I know what I'm saying. I know how it sounds, but I'm like, how can I disregard 15-20%? Maybe it'll be 20% soon, but 15% coupon rate of value coming back.
Mm-hmm. Hey, I also wanted to say one of the big misnomers right now on COM, like people that are looking at the COM chart, if I'll pull it up here just so we can look at it while we talk. But people that are looking at the COM chart right now, they may be looking at it through the window of Pulse X, and that's great. I mean, there's like $33,000 of liquidity here on the V2 COM versus Pulse pair, but there's a lot of liquidity spread out amongst multiple dexes. So if you see that number and you think like, wow, that's not that much liquidity, there is so much more liquidity on the PHUX DEX, and we're going to get into why it's over there and how it's set up to reinforce something that's called the secret weapon. But just to get that out there and in the clear, there's literally hundreds of thousands of dollars of liquidity spread across multiple DEXs and multiple pairs. And maybe this would be a good area for Johnny to step in and kind of just briefly kind of talk about, don't go into the deepness of all the allocations and stuff, but maybe just talk briefly about why you chose PHUX to like kind of launch this thing.
Yeah, and I'm really excited too. I've been excited for 11 months, or it's actually longer than that now, a year and a month. I mean, that's the age of Communis, because I pretty quickly recognized that there's something to this, and then it took me a little while to resolve how we actually use this to our advantage as the HEX community. So it is very exciting. And yeah, so like you say, most of the liquidity is positioned on the PHUX platform. And the reason is because in the PulseX, you have double-sided liquidity where you evenly put your liquidity on the bid side and the ask side spread evenly. In PHUX, you can do that differently. You can have a disproportionate allocation for how you're setting up your liquidity. And because of the fact that Communis supports HEX to such a large degree where it promotes burning of HEX, basically is a buy and burn is what it acts like on HEX, and promotes long-term staking, not just short-term staking. Because of that, you want it to be supported. And in order to support it most optimally, you want the backing against it. And so the PHUX platform allows you to put the backing in a disproportionate spread or balance between how much COM is on the bid side to be supported for the price versus how much is on the ask side, which is putting pressure on the price. And so the goal with this is that we wouldn't necessarily want to be putting pressure on the price because the way I see it is, why would you want to add pressure to something that is capable of onboarding new users, which is what this is capable of doing.
And I could follow that up with, another way to look at this too is you're actually minimizing the risk factor of like COM being more volatile. So if I zoom out here on the COM chart and look at this looks like a pretty clean, nice parabola. But what you don't see just by looking at this chart on log is how volatile this really was. I mean, here on the linear chart, you can see how volatile this was. These are massive swings in price. And so part of dampening that volatility, of course, was creating LP pools that could absorb a lot of that volatility by weighting it a lot more heavily toward HEX, for example. This is a 3,600% range. So that's about a 37x range. And that was over a very short period of time. Probably, let's see here. That was roughly 56 days, 37x range. So, I mean, what these pools do is they started to dampen the volatility down, and it also gives a special unique advantage when it comes to setting the coupon rate, which we'll talk about a little bit later.
The coupon rate just means cash back, baby.
Exactly.
Cash back.
Yeah.
So, like, I know one thing that people would wonder, like, what the hell does all this mean? Like, what's the coupon rate? What do you mean? Put simply, if you stake $10,000 for 15 years, you're going to get some COM back from the start bonus. So there's two elements, and actually this would probably be good for Codeak to come in here at this point and kind of explain it. But I'll just say that there's a start bonus and an end bonus. The start bonus you can claim up front, and the end bonus you claim when the stakes mature.
Yeah. I mean, it's really that simple. Its distribution model is designed in which it incentivizes better staking behavior. So starting a stake, you get a start bonus for that. And then there's an end bonus, which just requires you to fulfill your stake commitment. And then you get a bonus for doing that, the end bonus. It's really that simple, but it gets complicated when you have to understand how shares work and the relationship between HEX and COM. That's where it gets really, really complicated.
Well, we're all about simplifying it. So, simply put, if you didn't need to know a thing about liquidity pools and you just wanted to get exposure to COM because you saw that it was a cool opportunity, all you'd have to do is stake HEX to get it. So if you saw this chart and you're like, wow, this thing's up 176,000%. It looks like it's breaking the all-time high and it could go higher. I want some. You don't even have to go buy it. You just have to stake some of your HEX for 15 years to get the most out of your start bonus. And then that's transported to you now, right? Instantly by going to communist.app, going to the dashboard and claiming your COM start bonus. It's that simple. So it's free for you. That's where the whole like rebate idea comes from. And so currently based on where the price is at, here you can see COM in HEX terms on a linear chart, and each one of these rainbow bands represents a different coupon rate. Currently, you can see the price right here is sitting around a 15% coupon rate. So we've already done all the work for you to figure out how much money you're going to get back for staking the max length. We've done all that work for you. It's right here. If you stake for 15 years today, you're getting 15% back in dollar terms in COM. Okay. And based on the trajectory of where this thing's going, I mean, we were already at a 30% coupon rate very, very briefly here back in October when nobody even knew about COM. Nobody understood COM. And because of like what gets me excited about this is, I'm a TA and chain analysis and LP guy. I look at this and I see this thing going parabolic and thinking to myself, well, what is the implications for COM and HEX? And Johnny Crispy, please, where's the synergy in COM and HEX when you're looking at this coupon rate?
Yeah. So there's a whole lot of synergy here because, of course, we've been in a bear market for a long time in HEX, and even going into transitioning into the bull market, HEX was a little more slow to get off its feet. And so, of course, we know that when it comes to any cryptocurrency, a lot of the value in the cryptocurrencies is driven by attention, and then the marketability of the coin. And the attention and the marketability, they really kind of go hand in hand. So basically, if you have the best marketing, you're probably going to get the most value for your coin. However, the issue in cryptocurrency is that a lot of the times those are short-lived values. You'll see valuations skyrocket. You get these meme coins that can go up to $300, $600 million valuations within the first week. And then everybody sees that and they say, well, because the price went up, there's probably a lot of value here. And then because they think that the high price means that there's more value to be had, they end up making the mistake of buying a top. And then, of course, because a lot of these coins don't actually have sustained value that can go out into the future, you get these 90% drops, 95% drops, and things of that sort. So with HEX, what's going on, or what's been going on, is that you've had this low volatility in HEX, and unfortunately, the low volatility is just not exciting. And even though we, as the HEX community, as Hexicans, we love the coin, we love HEX, and we want to champion it, it's hard to do that, and it gets harder to do that if you don't have the marketability. And the marketability comes from, unfortunately, it comes from the growth in the value. It comes from green candles, really. So the way COM comes into play here is that we can now resolve that and basically turn the ship. We can really just turn the ship, literally, almost literally, and change the direction of the price chart. And the way we do that is we put a heavy burn on the HEX supply. And COM acts like a buy and burn on the HEX supply, because any value that comes into COM is value that is stored to eventually become staked value in HEX. And so as you're watching the valuation of COM climb, and you for example, you can look at the market cap of COM. Right now it's sitting at $8.5 million. Well, you can say to yourself, that's $8.5 million of valuation that will eventually be long-term staked HEX valuation. And so you can quickly see how, as the price of COM goes up, and as you're looking at the screen here at these coupon rates, and you're looking at, as the coupon rates get higher and higher, people get more and more value for staking their HEX. You are increasing the marketability of HEX, but on the COM side, it's just easier to make the green candles and give it value. And it's easier to give it value than HEX because it's a lower valuation than HEX. And so what it should end up being over time, the way I see it, is that, if it's hard to wrap your head around this getting to above and beyond a 100% coupon rate, you get to these high levels in the coupon rate, and then you'd say to yourself, well, that's a limiting factor, where now COM can no longer go up versus HEX because it just reached its limit, because it's at 100% coupon rate or close to it or whatever. However, that would be a faulty way of looking at it, in my opinion, because that opinion would come from almost the conditioning to believe that as hex goes up in price, it should drive up the price of its derivatives. However, in this scenario, I'm looking at it as this can actually be the thing that drags the hex price up. And so you actually have a unique situation where the derivative of hex could actually be the driver of hex's value.
Right, and that's through the process of buying and burning more hex off the market for longer, right? And something that we didn't speak to yet that needs to be fleshed out early on to really comprehend the strategy is the amount of COM that you're going to get is a lot more when you go out past 10 years than when you get for 1 year. So could you guys speak to like how big of a difference it is between short-term staking and long-term staking in terms of the COM value you get back and from the start bonus? Because that might help people figure out a little bit more of how valuable COM becomes when more and more hex is being staked long, and how scarce the supply really is. And I'm going to pull up a supply chart here while you're doing that.
Sure, and I'll speak to that. And Codeak, at any time, if you would like to jump in, go for it. But I'll take this one here for now. So, what was the question initially? Sorry, Axis.
Think about it like this: like we can somewhat calculate the future market supply of hex because we know the T-shares and when they end, and you can see all that like on a tool like hex.vision. And in the same way, we can actually account for how much communist supply is going to be coming from start bonuses, which actually gives us this ability to like kind of calculate on chain the liabilities that stand in the way from preventing the coupon rate from going higher. So originally the question was, when it comes to the supply dynamic in COM and hex, in COM, if you stake for a year, how much are you getting from a start bonus versus like 15 years? How much are you getting from a start bonus?
Yeah. So that's where the genius of this came in. And so Codeak has really done something really innovative here because basically what he's done is he has kind of unlocked the T-share, the maximum T-share bonus that you get. So in hex, when you stake for 10 years, that's the maximum of the bonus that you can get for your bonus T-shares.
Longer pays better?
With the longer pays better mechanism in hex. But with COM, that longer pays better actually acts like a even longer pays better. Because it doesn't max out the bonus at the 10-year mark. It actually maxes it out at all the way to the 15-year mark. And it does it to such a disproportionate level where the short-term stakers versus the long-term stakers, the difference in the amount of COM that they'll be entitled to in their claim is exponentially higher. It's not linear. So actually, as a fact, in hex, the bonus reward from staking, 1 day all the way to 10 years is a linear reward structure or linear bonus structure. In COM, that structure is not linear. It is exponential.
I think I figured out once that it's 50x more for a Quattro Cinco.
Yeah, I think that's about right.
So it's actually
it's huge.
It's 51. So there's the difference between the start bonus and the end bonus. The start bonus gets the difference between a 15-year staker, the 5555, and a 1-year staker is a 128x difference.
Wow.
Woohoo!
I
like that.
So that's the start bonus. Now the total end bonus, which ends up being the total amount of COM that you're entitled to, but you had to wait out your stake to get that end bonus. That difference between the 5555 staker and the 1-year staker is a 51x difference.
Okay, so start bonus 128x, end bonus 51x. Right?
Right.
Okay, so what does that mean? Well, okay. I'm typing this in the chat so we have it written down, guys. We're all good.
Also, I want to note real quick the difference between the 10-year and the 15-year. The start bonus difference on a 10-year stake versus the 15-year stake gets on the start bonus 2 times. No, sorry. 3 times as much on the start bonus for the 15-year staker versus the 10-year staker for the start bonus, and the end bonus is a 2x difference.
Yeah, we're gonna have to have that written down somewhere so we can look through that and have that available for people so they really can see how much supply gets backlogged onto that long-term stuff. And I think the net result here is think of like a simplistic strategy here for why COM helps bring value to HEX, right? So if you go and let's say today you have $10,000 of HEX and you want that COM bonus, and right now it's at 15%, and we can see that 15% right here on the price chart. And I go stake my $10,000 of HEX today for 15 years, and I get back $1,500 of COM, which is 15% of my total stake dollar value. And I'm looking at that and I'm like, that's great and all, and but that's only the start bonus. What about the end bonus, which would be, how much would that be today, roughly? Just, does anyone know that number there? What the end bonus would be if I staked today at the 15% coupon rate? What's the end bonus looking like in today's terms? Does anybody know?
Not off the top of my head.
Well, it's just
when you
times.
Would it be more or less than 15%?
The end bonus would be definitely more than the 15% coupon rate, right?
All right.
Right.
So let's just say this.
So when we're looking at these coupon rates,
Yep.
the way that I determine these coupon rates, it is based on specifically what a 5555 staker gets back. So when you're looking at these coupon rates, the start bonus is going to give you back. So right now we're at the 15% rate. That means only the 5555 staker gets the 15% back. Now that same 555 staker that gets the 15% back now, well, that represented 25%, because the start bonus for the 15-year staker is 25% of the total claimable COM. And then the end bonus represents the rest of the claimed COM, but they had to wait out the stake the whole 15 years to capture that.
Yep.
That end bonus represents the other 75%.
So you just walked right into my trap, Johnny. So this is what it is. You got $4,500 also, in addition to, of value in today's terms, that if you can make it to the end of the road and the prices stays the same as they are today, you have an additional $4,500 waiting for you at the end of the rainbow. Now, that's all fine and dandy, but think about it from a game theory perspective. How many guys are actually going to make it to the end of the road with their 15-year stake? How many of them are going to die? How many of them are going to forget their keys? How many of them are going to this or that? How many of them are going to emergency end stake their stake and lose the extra supply that they would have otherwise inflated into the system? And so what I think one of the unsung hero motives of this whole system is, like, look, as the coupon rate rises over time, more and more people are going to tend to stake longer, because they're going to be able to get 30, 40, 50% of the dollar value of their 15-year stakes back in COM value. And then that ends up becoming like a half price 15-year stake up here at 50%. Or even imagine a time when you're getting full price HEX stakes free, scot-free off the top. Put in $100,000 of HEX for 15 years, lock that bitch up, and then you get $100,000 of COM that day. I mean, can you imagine the possibilities with that? Now, that said, how much of that HEX then becomes lost or ended early, and that future COM supply gets evaporated out of existence, never comes to light, which is another bullish. It's got an automatic buy and burn in that, because COM and HEX's prices in dollar terms are going to perform so dramatically, the chances of all this future end stake bonus supply coming off is like probably highly limited, because of how insane this HEX COM Fusion is going to be for the price of both assets. They're completely interwoven, and the better COM does, the better the coupon rate does, the less need for people to fulfill their stakes at the end of the road, which ends up, it creates this loop of more and more HEX value gets locked up, burnt away, or distributed through penalties to more diehard long-term believers. And man, is that an exciting proposition.
It sure is. I mean, what it does is you're basically forcing the will of a growing average stake length. You are forcing the global average stake length up over time. And with COM, you can make that average stake length grow consistently. So, HEX on its own, before COM came into existence, basically what we've kind of seen in the data is that now, well, let's put it this way. So you have these hype waves, these hype cycles, and what we've seen in the data is that as the price of HEX is higher and rising in value, you then see the amount of stakes that are being opened and the length that those stakes are opening for, you see those increase. So it's actually really fascinating because those stake lengths and the amount of stakes being made increase as the price of HEX gets more expensive, and it decreases as the HEX price gets cheaper, because people, as HEX gets cheaper and cheaper, people start losing confidence, and as they lose confidence, of course, they're going to be less incentivized to stake longer, and they want to stake shorter. And that's where we start to see things like these rolling 30-day stakes with these huge liquid HEX bags rolling 30-day stakes over and over again. So now you can force the will of those, those users who want to only stake for 30 days or whatnot. Well, if the liquidity gets moved over to COM, it's going to basically box out those people and block them out from having the negative behavior of not trying to encourage a better staking behavior globally, or reduce the HEX supply. And
just to add a quick detail, so the way the exponential curve for the start bonus works, or well, for both the inbox and the start bonus, the higher your staked days get, the more you're incentivized to keep going up in staked days. I think, and I forget, but it's like 10 days before the max stake length is 1% less, which is, do you remember that, Johnny? What was the number? Was it 17 days or something?
You had brought that up at one time, and we were basically, what Codeak is trying to do is he's trying to say there's a shift of thinking that comes in the mind now with COM. So with COM, now that it exists and now that there is a coupon rate, everybody who's going to make a HEX stake has to shift their thinking a little bit, because if they were originally going to stake for 2 years, they now have to do a little bit of a double thinking process where they say, oh, I was going to stake for 2 years, but hold on, the coupon rate is at 30%. If I stake a little longer, how much can I get? And then it will make them want to stake longer. And what Codeak is saying here is that when we were looking into things, and looking at the differences between, like, for example, what the 1 year staker gets versus what the 15-year staker gets. Well, we were kind of looking at, like, well, if the difference is so big between the 1 year staker and the 15-year staker, and it's still a big difference between the 10-year staker and the 15-year staker, then what's even the difference between a couple days difference? So you've got the 5-5-5-5 stakes, but what if instead of staking 5-5-5, what if you staked like a month shorter than that, 30 days less? And I wish I had the number on the top of my head. I don't. But I think it was something like 1 to 3 months less than 5-5-5-5 is like a 1% difference or something like that. Maybe it was a week. Maybe it was 3 weeks that you get like a 1% difference in the amount of COM you get.
It was
so
like
these things are really going to shift the thinking a lot.
Yeah. Basically, the math pulls harder the more stake days.
Yeah, dude. So this is kind of cool. Like, if I was just to draw a curve of what you're saying, let's say 15 years is the max, is like, okay, we set the coupon rate here. This is 15 years, and then every month, I mean, it would taper off quite rapidly, right? So that by the time that you're at, like, 12 months of difference, this would be like hold on, let me make my curve a little better here. It tapers off very rapidly, right? In terms of, like, here's a 15-year stake. Here's 6 months later. Here's 12 months later, 24 months. It's like the amount of COM you're getting for going just months less than the max length is significant, right? Is that what you're saying?
Yeah. Absolutely. That is 100% exactly what we're saying. And this is what's so cool, because that's why I said you can force the will on the market, basically. You can, so there's a lot of discrepancy, I think. Maybe that's not the right word, but basically, people see that the price of HEX has been going down for a long time, or that it's slow to get up, and they equate that to that it sucks, or it's just not great, or maybe it's not the best cryptocurrency. But all it is just the price trying to find where the demand is. And the actual reason why there's such low volatility in HEX is because you have every single day that passes by, you have new maturing end stakes. And you have to keep in mind that those maturing stakes, it's not like they want to dump on your head. It's not like they just want to be like, you know what? I don't like this thing. I'm dumping it. It's that they've been waiting already 3 to 5 years. And that's an everyday thing. Every day when new hex stakes mature, you have a new group of people who have waited 3, 5, 2 years. And basically that's going to be supply that is always coming out. And so that acts as a supply line on the basically distribution on the chart. And if the demand isn't meeting that, then you're going to get a downtrend on the chart. And then so you would ask yourself, well, then how did we go up in the beginning? Well, the stakes were never created. They weren't maturing in the beginning. They're maturing now, and they're going to continue maturing.
I got an extra element to that. Just remember what you're about to say. Just that, that look, we went through the most hyperinflation that we were ever going to get on Hex. Like the amount of Hex that came out those first 3 years is like, you'll never see that much ever again. And this is why I say things like, and this is just even irregardless of COM, this is why you're never going to get the same kind of drawdown we got from this bear market ever again. It's like, it's just a matter of a price over time catching up to the supply. Like you said, there's a supply line here, but there's also an additional element too. You just doubled the supply overnight with Pulse Chain effectively, which totally threw a wrench in the whole thing. Because had that not happened, we would have probably bottomed, somewhere in here, and we'd be on that kind of a supply line. I'm just being frank about it. Had you not doubled the supply onto a Pulse Chain, we would have never broken down into these types of levels again. So it's kind of a unique sticking point.
And liquidity bonded to Pulse Chain.
Well, yeah, and then you had like the FUD too with a lot of circumstantial stuff. Once all this is behind us, Hex is not doing another minus 99% drop. And COM is only rocket fuel to amplify the upside move and get us out of here quicker. As people start to capture that.
Hey, can I be super redundant? You guys mind if I make a comment? Hey, for everybody watching, what we're talking about is COM. It's it's a reward token incentive for staking Hex. So all the new onboards you have, let them know they get free COM, and they can get more Hex. And if they want to go along with it, they get even more, right? And they can turn around, take that Hex and stake it, right?
And you can give them a referral link too.
And you can get a referral link for 1%.
So, yep.
And so the whole idea here is to keep that pressure on leaning into it, like Johnny keeps saying, leaning into locking up more Hex, because it's good for everybody in the ecosystem. And the new folks, if they need it, come get their COM, right? If that's what's going to give them that opportunity. For the rest of us that want to support it, stake your COM.
What's the price right now? 1.7 cents on Pulse Chain? Something like that.
Yeah.
So check this out. If you go and stake $17,000, you're going to get back 15%, which is $25.50. So check this out. This is pretty cool math. Just quickly, like you stake 1 million Hex for 15 years. At the end of that, your payout's looking to be somewhere. You're going to get back 5.5 million. You're going to 4.5x in crypto terms your bag. Now that's a long time to wait. Don't get me wrong, but you're getting back 25.50 back in value. Which would be, what is that, times 0.017. How much Hex is that? Someone do the math quick. Probably like 230,000 or something. What I'm trying to prove is that, it's too much. So yeah, it's like 150,000 Hex you get back in COM at today's current coupon rate. So you're getting back, you're staking away 1 million and you're getting back, 15%, 150,000 Hex, right?
Yeah.
In COM value. And so, math's not my strong suit here. That's why I got Johnny. But check this out. So imagine that, and then look, if you took that free money and then you stick that out 15 years, then you're going to get an additional 836,000 and then you get 15% back on that. And so there will be people that choose to, when the coupon rate achieves like 50% or 75% one day, they'll just loop this through. They'll just take Hex, stake it 15 years, get the coupon, buy Hex, stake that 15 years, get the coupon, buy Hex, stake it 15 years, get the coupon, and you could like get an extra. Yeah.
Arbit right down. Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
Right.
I'll jump in real quick on that because a lot of people think that that's a way to abuse the system. So they think that this is sort of a recycling kind of thing where you can just make a Hex stake, recycle it through COM, and then make another Hex stake and then recycle it through COM. However, the reason it can't be abused is because anything under a 100% coupon rate has to be a net value add, which means you have to be burning more Hex than what you are receiving back in COM. And so if you try this recycling thing where you think you're gonna, like say we're at a 50% coupon rate, you get 50% of your Hex back after staking. Well, you just lost 50% of your Hex still. So even though you're happy because you're getting the 50% of your Hex back, well, you're not now restaking again 100% of the principal again. You're now staking again 50% of the principal. And then if you get 50% back from that, now when you go to restake again, you're at 25%. Do that again, and now you're at 12%. And you're quickly running out of that ability to recycle. So
right. And that's not even considering changing the ratio on the open market.
Right.
Yes.
So depending on the actual volume, yeah. So.
Well, no, yeah, I agree with you, Johnny. What we really saying is right, and it's what Codeak's following up with is, there's limited ability to drive it back down because the system's going to kick in and self-regulate, and that's the system, quote unquote, being the liquidity pools, etc. Right? I mean, if you drive the ratio down, you get less, and so then it's disincentive to keep going with it, right?
Mm-hmm.
And it's an open competition too. I mean,
yeah, it does.
If it could get to 100%. It's not just going to be one guy. Oh, okay, I'm going to make a stake now, right? You're going to probably have many, many people, and they're all going to have to make the stake, let it activate, wait for a day, and then try to, whatever their plan is, right? So it's a very interesting mechanic.
So, yeah, go ahead, Crispy.
I know. I was just looking at Benny Blanco in the chat, and he was making a comment, and it just reminded me. And you're talking about it right now. I had stake come out this week, and I was like, "What am I going to do with this?" It was a normal rung. I don't want to sell. What am I going to do? And I went Quattro Cinco.
There you go.
I put it out, and they took the COM because it gave me the 13% back, and I got it. So now I can do what I need to do with it, whatever I want to do. Now, of course, it's my situation that works. That's what I wanted to do.
I actually like to theorize about an event that could occur where, for you 224-ish people watching, 225 people watching, appreciate you all for being here. Please hit the like and subscribe so we can bring you more amazing content. But my thought on this was, imagine a world where the COM supply gets so scarce. And why do I even think that's possible? Because I actually did a breakdown here of how many quads was in the hands of the top 30 wallets versus everybody else's supply. And currently, based on the circulating supply that is not staked COM, at these prices, over 55% of that is now sitting in the top 30 wallets, which, again, for those that are just showed up, that's the quadfather class of communists, the protectorates, the guys that really want the coupon rate to sustain so that we can continue to increase the value proposition of Hex. Because it markets itself so long as you can hold on to your quads.
Well, and isn't it worth to say at the same time as you're saying that this is while Hex is becoming more rare, because for this to happen, the Hex has to be staked.
Correct. And so, and with that, so this is a good question here. Escatar asks. He said his brain hurts a bit because he's like, well, what happens if you get above the 100% coupon rate? Can't you infinite recycle? It's staking 5, and the answer is yes. Yes, that's absolutely what would happen. People could print money out of thin air effectively. So assuming nobody dumped or arbitraged the coupon rate back below 100%. So what does that really look like in reality? In reality, here we got the coupon rates, and I'll shrink this down. I'm going to put log on now. So this really gives you some perspective on where the coupon rate sits in the history of COM. Like, look at this move. Anyways. So if this is 100% up here, around this area, every time that the price is going to, the price of COM is going to try to rise faster than people can arb back down the price. For example, it gets up, let's say it gets up to 100% coupon rate. I mean, how many people are really actually, I know we like to say, oh yeah, everyone will just recycle. How many people are really comfortable locking all their stuff up, even if they get 100% back? Like, I don't know, maybe everyone is. Maybe everyone's like, screw it, it's free money, we'll just do this loop. But maybe that doesn't happen. Maybe COM goes up just on speculation alone, and in the next like 10,000 users that crosses the pulse chain bridge has no idea what the fundamental utility of this is, and they shoot the price of COM up past 100%. What would be in the Hexakin's best interest to totally take advantage of that and pump the hex price by selling their COM for hex and burning more, and just, it would fuel the most insane price appreciation on hex like we've never seen before. But in the effort, in that moment of, let's say COM comes up here, I'm going to delete these little ratios out. Okay. Let's say COM gets up here today and it goes vertical and it goes up to 110% coupon rate, and you can start arbing it back down. Well, what does that say about, what am I trying to say in terms of, people can continue to do this loop, but what happens if like these speculators that know nothing about COM, they just keep pushing it up and pushing it up and pushing it up, like, just because it's a coin on the pulse chain that doesn't mean anything to them, and then you're sitting there pumping the hex price, which would effectively bring the price back down of the coupon rate, because you got to remember, this coupon rate is a function of the COM price relative to the hex price. So COM gets its coupon rate from the price of hex, basically. So if COM did come up here to like 110% and you sold it for hex, it's going to push the coupon rate back down on the ratio here. But that doesn't mean that the dollar price didn't just keep going up forever. So what you could get here, and I'm going to switch to the USD now chart now, is you could get the situation where, like, let's say COM's going parabolic, and every time that somebody sells their COM for hex a little bit, hex goes up another leg, and then COM chases hex and overpasses it, and then they sell their COM down, and then hex, and then they just keep going back and forth, and you start creating this interwoven price loop where effectively you have this type of thing happening where hex is going up, COM is going up, hex is going up, COM is going up, and USD price up and to the right, and they're propelling themselves forward, and the coupon rate just keeps getting arbed back down, is what we've been saying. The coupon rate just keeps getting arbed back down and punched back down like this, but yet the dollar prices of both are just trending higher and higher and higher.
Absolutely. You know, you just nailed that, Axis, because I don't know how many people out there. So I don't know how many people out there had really been paying attention and following what I've been trying to really get out there, what message I've been trying to get out about this. But if you've been following closely, you may have heard me say that this can act like a perpetual motion machine. Another way to put it is, it kind of acts like a flywheel, because just like you just laid out there, Axis, where you could get the COM price going sideways against hex, but it's pushing both prices up on the dollar at the same time. So even though COM is sideways versus hex, you're forcing both prices of COM and hex versus the dollar up against each other at all the time. And then, you get to these high coupon rates, and you start intuitively, you want to think that the game's over. There's no more opportunity there. But because of this way that it becomes this perpetual motion machine where you onboard new stakers and reduce the hex supply while you're doing that, and then by reducing the hex supply, you now raise the price of hex, which then raises the price of COM. You're getting this circular loop, this positive feedback loop. And so you would think that it's game over once you get to the 100% coupon rate, time to dump, when in actuality, it's actually just time to pour more fuel on the fire, because why wouldn't you want to continue throwing fuel on the fire and adding capital, which has a 100% efficiency, by the way, on onboarding new stakers, and then you just continue onboarding new stakers until all of the hex is burnt off the market. And when we say all the hex burnt off the market, there is a theoretical, literal scenario where you can actually burn all the hex.
Crispy, maybe you want to talk a little bit to the user supply and how much hex is really out there.
Yeah, sure. I mean, I was actually just looking at that last night. I mean, we assume conservatively in the hex supply that's circulating, we've got something around 20 to 24 billion hex that's available outside of the OA's hands. And but a good 30% of it hasn't moved in years now, right? So we would consider to be inactive, and so your adjusted is less than 20 billion, right? And then when you compare, meaning adjusted circulating supply, excluding the OA and some of these inactives, and so you've got less than 20 billion hex out there that could even come into play. On top of that, when you look at the market, I think on the pulse chain side, right, we're less than 1 billion now. That's even available on the market. So you only have, even if you just rounded all this off and said we got 20 billion supply out there that's accessible. So we only have what 1/20th that can even be bought on the market. And I think we all know enough by now to know that, which is what 5%, right? So we even, we know now what happens if somebody tried to go buy all that. What happens? Infinite price, right? So, I mean, of course, more people put more up for sale. So anyways, the opportunity is there right now for this type of thing because just the fact that we go through this process would drive those prices up. And because they're linked, they both go up, right? I think that's what you're getting at.
We actually have like a real world example of a coin that was created that has an ultra scarce supply that kind of would reflect the kind of price movements you could get out of Hex if all that supply was locked up and limited in amount and it went off the market. And I mean, so for example, this coin, the Axis token, like it literally went up 3.2 billion or 3.2 billion X versus Pulse. Like it did this crazy price move because there's no coins available on the market. And there's only one direction the price can go, and that's up and to the right because there's nothing to buy. And if the market makers believe in it, they're just going to push it up. Right. And so in the case of COM and Hex, like if you take away that final 20 billion Hex, what does that mean for market supply? There's already only like 1 or 2% of Hex supply on the market for sale anyways. Because most people that have Hex, they're not market makers. They're not LP guys. They don't trade. They just sit there and milk yield. And so all this really does is it creates the supply shock of the century like we haven't even seen. And which because the price is going to perform, we all know that green candles are the best form of marketing. I would anticipate that you'd bring on the next 100,000 or 200,000 users into Hex just because there's no supply. Everybody wants what they can't have. That's just simple human psychology. So to me, COM and Hex are perfectly suited to solve the dilemma of overhanging supply, and it brings us a route to market it to bring in more new demand.
Yeah, I mean, it's really like serendipitous, right? Like it because Codeak has brought this to life, right? Like he developed this. I mean, I couldn't be more grateful for what we have now as a tool because nobody even imagined this. Like when we were discussing ideas about what's possible for Hex, a lot of those ideas involved wrapped stakes, which have now come to fruition. The whole Hedron thing where you auction on those stakes, cool utility. But I can't recall any discussions where anything like this has ever been in the discussion at all. And then Codeak just suddenly brought it to life here without any previous, even touching on the idea of this being a possibility. But here we are. We're sitting here looking at a chart that's been up and to the right for a year and 1 month now since the birth of its existence back in January 2023, by the way.
Yeah. And I think I mentioned it like one time in 2020. Just I think if you look at the Hex dev chat, I think I called it Sharecoin. I was just asking I think it was Dev Kyle what he thought about tokenizing shares.
Very fascinating.
I love this question here about Hex Turbo. It says there will always be people who will arb the price down. Similar to Icosa ceiling price, there wasn't enough buy pressure to keep it there. Question, how do we create more buy pressure for COM? So ironically enough here, brother, if you just account for so I'm just going to go ahead and say, let's just make some assumptions here. Of course, they could be wrong, and any one of these top 30 wallets could lose their shit and dump their stack, which wouldn't affect us because nobody holds more than 3 quads per person in the circulating supply currently. So let's say these other 48 quads so keep in mind here, 59 of the quads is already stacked in diamond hands, and the other 48 appears to be the other wallets, right? So if that's the basis of the theory here, if all 48 of those quads was dumped on the market today, it would be roughly a dollar value of $3.6 million of value that could be dumped. And if you're looking at the kind of numbers that Hex has done over the years, I mean, we used to do $100 million in a couple of days during the bull market. And just in this price here on this one pair on PulseX, there's $821,000 of volume traded in 260 days. So I'm not really concerned with absorbing that $3 million of COM in the circulating supply at this price. It's already foreshadowing upper price movement, and you can see it in the trend here because there's just not enough supply. And the only way you're going to get more is by more people staking Hex, buying the price up, pushing it out long term, getting the start bonuses, dumping that on the market. So it's really just a one-way track to new inflation through burning and pushing up the price of Hex.
I'll step in there too as well. I'll give my answer to that question too, Axis. So when I was trying to present this to the community the best I can, my reach is not as strong as some other people's. My influence isn't as strong. So I was really trying to get this out there, and a lot of it got ignored. But to answer that question, when I presented this to the Hexagon community, I called it the secret weapon and the HEX COM Fusion. And when I say the secret weapon, I am referring to the plan of why. So I'm basically referring to the answer to Hex Turbo's question there, because the secret weapon is the answer. So COM is the token, and I've said in the past that COM is the token that supports the strategy of the secret weapon. And so the secret weapon is the strategy of how it's basically the reasoning as to why this should continue to go up in price, why people should support this price. Because I know intuitively, so this is, I think, where people have a hard time wrapping their head around this, is that intuitively you think, if I am going to put up money to be claimed by somebody else, why would I want to do that? Because I'm losing my value to give it to someone else. And so you think to yourself, well, it's nice that we can onboard new users by giving them an airdrop, free money, but why would I want to be the one that gives them that free money? And so this secret weapon is the strategy of why we would want to do that. And I can go over kind of how that works, because basically, there's a theoretical mathematical proof that shows that you can brute force your profitability between the two systems. And so the reason I called it the secret weapon and the HEX COM Fusion is because when you are aware of that theoretical proof that shows that you can brute force the profitability, you realize that what it shows you is that there's never really a good reason to only hold HEX or only buy COM. There's always a good reason to own a certain amount of both of them. And the secret weapon, what it is it's telling you that based on what coupon rate we're currently at, there is a particular allocation that puts that into balance, where the amount of money that you're offering up to be claimed by new HEX stakers to onboard new users can be balanced out, where you get the value back in the growth that they're bringing by becoming new stakers and onboarding new users. So that's where things do get complicated. However, you don't really even need to think about it. So there's a lot of complicated things in this, kind of like the engine in your car is complicated. However, the actual approach to this is really as simple as the approach to a meme coin, which is just buy and hold, because there's no reason, and then you just let the big money, sophisticated big money, handle the secret weapon strategy, which is more of a sophisticated, complicated strategy that involves LPing and the allocations that you'd put between HEX and COM. But for for the more simple users who just want to buy a coin and hold it, this doesn't work any different from your typical meme coin. You can literally just buy and hold, and that can be your strategy, and it works for you.
Yep.
And
Yeah,
then
look for the 100, look for the 100, 200
and brute force yours as well.
Yeah. I'm just agreeing with you. You could, in that way, you're speculating and just looking for your 100, 200x. But the people listening to this stream, first off, they're probably hexagons already, or thinking about becoming hexagons in some way, shape, or form. So again, that answer about how does this help them? If you're hexagon, you want that price to go up, right? You want the value to go up. You want the network to grow. So we continue to tell people how they can get free tokens. Here's your incentive. If you do, like Axis was saying, if you're doing as much as $17,000, right, you're getting that 13-14% back, $2,500 worth of COM. It's a free coupon. They can swap that to HEX and keep it liquid. They could swap it to HEX and stake it for 60 days. Swap it to HEX and keep it for 6 months. And then for the rest of us, we want to help really drive this really far. We make COM scarce. You'll stake your COM if that's what you want to do. I mean, we talk about it. I guess what the people could do is just do nothing with their COM, and then by definition it'll become scarce because there'll be less of it out there. But we all think we should win, right, in the game. And so they can claim their COM, stake it for the 5%, and if they really want to help with the LP, if that's your game, if you're interested in that,
which we will be getting into shortly.
Or buy it off the market. Just take it off the market. Become a quad father.
There's only so much room for people in the Quad Fathers Club, so you better secure your seat now.
Yeah, well, I mean, you show the number of quads that are left, but there ain't going to be that many more quads.
No,
right? I mean, not individually.
So, Axis, can we touch on the? I want to touch a little bit on the scarcity of COM, and we also have a comment that I see asking us to cover the fact that the Godwill has claimed and redeemed his COM.
Love it.
So I could speak a little bit to what Godwill has done, and at the same time, I'll speak to some of the scarcity that COM has. If I could share my screen.
Yep, please do.
Okay. Okay, so
what up, Brian?
Gentlemen,
this guy's the most passionate and energetic COM lover that I know.
Yeah, hey, we can't have him in here and
right on
block
cue.
his face like that. Let's get his face on that screen there. What's going on, Brian? How you doing, man?
What's up, guys? You can hear me all right?
Oh yeah.
Oh, yeah.
Cool. How many viewers out there right now?
I'm seeing like 235 right now, on the way to 300.
You guys out there, listen to me right now. This is the biggest thing in crypto. I've been in crypto since 2017. Like many of you guys, Uniswap was insane. That changed the game. This, I want to say, is bigger, but wouldn't be possible without DEXs. Automatic onboarding into HEX. We, the community, can give value on the COM side and drain out all the coins we want to. And listen, the past year and a half, I tried to onboard 100 people into HEX. Now, I like to talk about business. It doesn't matter if it's at the gym, the supermarket, my own social circle. Out of 100 of those people, I always like to get into like investing. I'm the crypto guy around, in real life when I meet people. 0 out of 100 of those guys, I was able to get into fucking HEX. Do you understand? If I can go back to those guys right now and say, listen, that $1,000 investment you wanted it, that I told you, look, this is where you want to be in HEX. For 15 years, if you stake $1,000, I'm going to give you $1,000 back. How
it's
many
actually,
of those
it's
guys?
actually 1,500 a day, Brian.
Right, correct. Yes, you're right. But yesterday it was 10. But you know what I'm saying? Like,
oh yeah,
we can make it to where the instant rebate is at 100% conversion rate if we wanted to. Imagine if it was 50%. How many of those guys would be enticed now out of 100 of those guys? Maybe 10, 15 of them? They'd be like, okay, we're going to sit down together and I'm going to get you a MetaMask and I'm going to figure this all out. 75% instant rebate. Imagine that. Now those 100 guys out of, probably 40 of them, 50 of them are going to be like, okay, what the hell is this? At 100% conversion rate, out of those 100 guys, let's say 90 of them now are going to get in, and then the other 10%, they're lost in the damned. I don't know what to tell you. But this is a good way to put it, guys, out there listening. This is very real, and this is exclusive to HEX. There is no Bitcoin, for instance. It still needs a social community to thrive. There's no way to onboard directly. This is how it's going to be done, and this is how the next wave of hexagons, this wave, when this gains traction, guys out there listening, is going to be the biggest wave you have ever seen in any cryptocurrency. But the community needs to understand this. We're already in HEX. We want to give the calm value to the new onboards. They deserve it. We want them to be able to extract the calm value. They can do as they please. They can stake more HEX. They can go to their bank account, cash it out, whatever they want to do. That's our gift to them. We need new onboards. We give it to the new guys. Now, imagine 1,000 people outside of HEX see this and they're getting in. Don't you think a percentage of them will be like, wait a minute, what the fuck is this? I want to support this because this is of a magnitude different than I've ever seen. That I'm getting paid now as an instant rebate to stake HEX for however long. Well, it's a minimum of 180 days, but you're going to get the large instant rebate bonus, start bonus. The longer you stake, you're going to get more comp. So we're going to be burning the HEX supply by doing this long term. That HEX is doing a better job than all of the liquid HEX holders out there. And we're onboarding a new user. This is the next wave of this, guys. This is when Johnny Sachs unveiled this, I was up for 3 days straight trying my best to debunk that this can't work. How is this possible? The reality is, for the conversion rate to be high, we need to give that value to the comm side. That's how we onboard. We incentivize people. The higher the rebate, the more of a demographic within reach we're going to get. I'll give you an example. The Dogecoin community. So there's, represented on Fux.io, there's 20 pools, each represented, and they go up in increments of 5%, 5, 10, 15, up to 100. The first group is the 5%. We're already at almost the 15%. So we'll start there at the 15% pool. 10% of the Doge community said, nope, we're not going to buy HEX. I don't care if the county mayor tells us to buy and stake HEX. We're not doing it. I don't care if the president of the United States goes on TV. I'm not doing it. I will get into long-term HEX stakes as soon as I get my 15% instant rebate. Then I'll get into HEX. We're almost at the 15% rate. Perfect. That's X amount of Dogecoin holders that sell their Doge. Now they're in HEX. They're finally enticed to get into HEX. Now let's say that represents, what did I say, 10% of the Doge community? Okay, so now we raise the bar to the 40% instant rebate. This is now a larger amount of the Dogecoin holders that are going to be enticed to collapse into HEX now. Not just 10%, now it's 40% of the Doge community. Are you starting to see where I'm going with this, viewers? The higher the instant rebate, the more users we're going to extract from other communities into HEX, not just HEX, but burnt HEX long term. This is what's going to change. This is changing the game, guys. There's nothing more exciting going on in crypto. I know there's a lot of you know, we got the DEX now, Pulse Chain. You see other coins going up, this, that, and the other. There is some, you know, capital inflows going elsewhere. This is going to bring everything back into Hex, guys. This is the magic. If you are a T shareholder in Hex, you need to be here now. I'm not going to say any names out in the community, but if you guys need to be here, this is where the champions are. This is where the Hex advocates need to be now. Do you understand, viewers? I love you guys, you viewers, by the way. But anyway.
Awesome energy, Brian. That's perfect.
Dude.
Awesome.
Yes, this is very real. And like I said, guys, we are already in Hex. We want to give that value on the comm side to the new onboards. That is what we need to get together and understand. We're not going to stop Hex guys right now from doing what they want, you know, but the faster we can come together and agree that we want to give the comm value to the new onboards to extract, then Hex is unstoppable.
The irony with all this, Brian, the irony with all this is like if you get this wave of longer term Hex stakes put in to get the comm back, you're scratching the itch of short term gratification by getting some value back, and you're delaying gratification with long term, and it's kind of this double entendre that's occurring. The higher the coupon rate goes, the more these short term guys are going to flip long term. Yeah, because they will have no other choice. It's free money. People can't avoid them. Can't stop themselves.
Right.
And think about too that, you know, you do this and you think you're giving away value to the new people to onboard, and it's like, all right, so there's some sort of value loss. But so as soon as you onboard a new user through this, like let's say they got $100 for free because the coupon rate was over 100%, they were able to actually get $100 for free. Okay, so that was value that was extracted from the community, and now you have a new staker because of it. However, that new staker hasn't yet added value. They've just taken value. However, as they're watching that little $100 stake that they just got for free, and they watch it over time and they see what the yield can do, what the Hex yield has the power to do for them, you know, they're going to, you know, just like we used to have Staker app, or I guess that's gone now or something, but you can watch your Hex stake and you can watch it accumulate value. But because of the fact that the only way you were to get that $100 for free is that you had to stake for 15 years, you're forced to watch that thing for 15 years, which means over time, there's almost this nagging effect that it's going to have on you where you're like, man, that Hex thing, you know, probably give it a second look. And then that person can eventually become a value add instead of somebody who just makes money. They will eventually come back and invest more than what they receive.
I mean, the way I think of it, you know, can directly influence Metcalfe's law in Hex. Is that fair to say? I mean,
yes.
You can. It's up to the open market, of course, or a whale to do the work of the many. But you know, it's really exciting.
And I think what Brian's been trying to get at, you know, when he's saying that we should be gifting the value to the new onboards and not to ourselves. Because imagine the network effect if instead of you taking that value for yourself and being like, well, we're at 100% coupon rate, I guess I better make a Hex stake for 15 years and claim the 100% back. Instead of you doing that, why not, you know, give that value to the actual new user that can come on board? And then imagine how much more you receive as an effect of the network effect, the power of the network effect that you'll get by I put a post on Twitter the other day and I said $100,000 could give $100 to 1,000 people.
Yes.
And what kind of network effect do you think that would have if you do that? And so when Brian's trying to say that everyone needs to come together and basically, you know, we all hold hands and say we're not going to sell any comm, that's what would happen. If we all hold hands and say we're not going to sell any comm, then what's going to happen is any money that comes into it gets another new user, and then you get word of mouth. Oh, and then not only that, but in comm, we haven't even touched on this yet, but we have a reactivated referral program with comm now. And so now you don't just get a new user, but maybe you get a really energized new user who wants to spread the word. But then he realizes, oh, wait, not only can I spread the word, I can also earn money by spreading the word. And not only can I earn money by spreading the word, but I should look for the highest value people to spread that word to. Because if you onboard, for example, a millionaire and you get a referral of 1%, that $1 million that came into Hex and received their com back, you got 1% of that as the referee. And you now made $10,000. So you can actually give yourself a job. The network effect here is going to be absolutely massive because we already had the network effect just in how this is built in itself with the whole coupon rate situation. But now you add on top of that the referral program, and it's explosive. It's completely explosive. The network effect is going to have a massive effect. And so, you know, and by the way, so I meant, you know, what Brian mentioned and where I followed up and said that, you know, it would be great if everybody could get together and agree that, you know, we don't sell com because we'd rather give that value to new users instead. Well, that's an idealism. That's an idealistic way of looking at it. And this, I just want everyone to know that this is not based, like the whole strategy here and this whole thing is not based on the assumption that we can all hold hands and agree not to sell. It's not based on that assumption. As a matter of fact, the secret weapon strategy that I designed is based on the opposite assumption. It's actually based on the fact that you assume that literally everyone sells. And so when I designed this, the secret weapon strategy, with secret weapon strategy, just to summarize, is basically just the allocation of how to balance your allocation between how much com you should have and how much hex you should have. And so when you go down the PHUX pools, as a matter of fact, since I have my screen up here, I'll quickly touch on that. So here I am on the PHUX platform, and this is just another DEX. Basically, it's actually just a copy of Balancer, for those who are not aware, copy of Balancer from Ethereum. But this is the Pulse Chains version of it. So you go here, and I've already got filtered PCOM here. Let me try to make my screen bigger. Not going to work out very well, but so you've got PCOM filtered out, and what you would do is look for these pools that are named secret weapon coupon rate pools. Here's the secret weapon 5% pool. You have the secret weapon 10% pool, 100%, and basically it's in increments of 5, between 5% all the way up to 100%. And then what you would do is you would refer to the coupon rate, and I can bring that up here.
Yeah, somebody actually asked early in the stream if this was visible somewhere on some website so we could just see what's the coupon rate today. What's the coupon right now on this hour? And I think that's something that's going to come, guys, with an updated website for communists. No promises, but maybe we'll get some kind of functionality there.
Yeah, well, currently you have the ability to go and do it by hand. I should be able to do it by hand by now, but I needed help. But I went to the calculator and I just asked a few questions from Codeak. It gave me the information, and that's on the communist.app, and you can figure out what your start bonus is, and based on the current prices, right, figure out what the number is. And we were running 14% earlier today, right? 14%. Yeah, so yeah, we're looking to create something so it'll be available there.
Yeah, and so that's one of the things is that this is all very early. It's so early that we don't even really have the resources available out there yet. We don't have the coupon rates laid out. We don't have a website that really explains how this works. We don't. So, you know, it's just very early at this point, but you see what the chart is doing already, and it's like, well, I'll let your imagination run.
Yeah,
but so.
Well, what you're showing here, Johnny, right, is if people want to LP and support that way, how they can do it and have limit their exposure to downside, right? Is that
yes? So the secret weapon strategy is basically designed so that you can support this system because you're saying to yourself as a Hexican, I would like to support the marketing for Hex. And so when you say that, you now need to add value to COM in order to do that. However, even though you're adding value, you don't want that value to get taken away. We know that, you know, in capitalism, you want to make a return on investment. And so what these secret weapon pools do is they're set up in a way where you are sending your risk to the minimum level. So it's minimizing your risk. Now, with minimized risk comes low returns. And so if you want to make higher returns, you want to maximize your risk. And in order to maximize your risk, you would not join these pools. You would instead buy and hold the COM because as of right now, COM is the more risky asset than HEX. And by the way, that can swing. It actually is the way that it's designed is that it can swing like a pendulum where it kind of swings to one side where HEX is the more risk averse asset, but then it swings to the other side where COM is the more risk averse asset. Right now, the position it's in, and I would say like if you're below the 50% coupon rate, then that means that COM is the more risk asset. Well, since COM is the more risk asset, that means you should have a heavier allocation in HEX than in COM. And so that's what this is doing. It's finding the balance of where you have your risk minimized. So if you find that we're at a 15% coupon rate, you can join this pool, and it's going to be represent an allocation of 96% HEX with only 4% COM. And now you have taken your risk to a minimal level between the two. And you can say at the same time that I am now supporting the marketing for HEX.
Mm-hmm. Hey, you know, an add-on question for you, maybe a statement, maybe see if you can verify this for us. So on the one hand, and I get that it sounds all complex and everything, because on the one hand, you get the free COM, right? And you guys get the free COM. We want the new guys to get the free COM. We want network effects. We want those effects. So what about the worst case, right? A lot of people listening are probably like, yeah, I don't know about that. People are just going to dump it. So my thought on this is dump away. So if you don't want it, when you dump it, the quad fathers will collect that. Will collect that COM. That's what's going to happen, right? They'll collect that COM, and this will keep moving without you, if that's what it is. Now, one way you could do that and support HEX is swap it for HEX. Drive the HEX price up. Dare you? Go ahead. Drive it up. Move the value into move it into HEX,
Yeah.
and people will still collect the COM.
So, Crispy Man, that's a great way to transition into this chart here, because when you mentioned that if you want to just claim it and dump it, and then go ahead and do that, dump away. Well, we've already seen that in the history. So if you look at this chart here, what do you notice when you look at this chart? So right now I have this chart showing the full history of the amount of COM that has been claimed. And actually, I'm gonna
and I see really high numbers in the opening days, almost nothing in the center, tapering off, and then some medium size, just not even medium, like low claims, followed by like a huge big claim here at the end. That's what.
Absolutely. So that's what happened is a lot of the supply came out in the very first few weeks of Communis coming into existence. And it was because of the fact that it was unknown, and everybody was kind of conditioned to believe that a free airdrop token should just be dumped. Well, that was the behavior we saw. We saw that nobody really wanted to take the time necessarily to figure out how this could maybe add value. And so they just looked at it as a free token to dump. And so that shows up here where they claimed a bunch of the supply in the beginning here. And the supply got disrespected and it got dumped. And now, because it got dumped, it became very easy to pick that up. And as we go on, you see how much the claims have diminished since that point. Now, here's where this is going to get cool. So we actually got some really great news early this morning, even in the midnight hours, actually, if you're, depending on where you are, I guess. But we had the God Whale come in and claim his tokens, which was really amazing timing since we're doing this stream. So now look at what the God Whale's claim has done to this. So you see all this supply that was claimed in the very beginning. And I want to show what the God Whale's supply did to this. Basically, well, let's just show it. So this is going to refresh the screen here. hopefully at least. So we're on which day are we on? Does anybody know the day number that we're on?
1536 today.
Okay, it's finally loading. All right, so now it loaded up, and look at, so here's the early supply that was minted. Look at what the Godwill's supply did. So he came in and basically, and by the way, he staked this supply. He did not mint it into existence. He actually staked it. So the Godwill is basically showing his hand that he wants to support this system. But yeah, you could see that he basically just made the rest of the supply look like almost nothing on the chart. And so if the Godwill is coming in here to support this system, you know, you can see the endless possibilities about where this can go. But, you know, so that's really cool. But let's look a little deeper now too. So I'm going to go back and I'm going to remove this Godwill claim so that we can get better resolution on the chart again. And this is usually loads faster. So today it's running a little slower. Maybe there's more people visiting the website. Okay, so here I am. I just basically just went 1 day less so that it removes the Godwill. Now you see the beginning spike in supply. I want to zoom into where the supply started increasing again, which is around here. And you're going to see something fascinating here too. So let's for example, go to day number, let me get a good day here. 1401. So let's do that. Hopefully we load fast enough here. But basically what you're going to see is that we had a trending amount of supply, and here it is loading up here. So before we saw this spike right here, and you know, I apologize that this maybe isn't zoomed in as much as I'd like it to be, but you look
what's the date? What's the date on that? You know?
Yeah, so it's in it's in hex day numbers. It's not in dates. So we would need to open up. Well, actually, I have.
What's today? I'll just go work my way back.
Yeah. No, I can get it actually really quickly.
Yeah, I've got to see this on the price chart as you're explaining this.
Sure. Yeah. So let's see. So what I'm doing is I'm going to hexstats.today. Previously it was hex daily stats, and that will give me the day number that aligns with the date. So looking here, this would be, so like I'm going to go to this bar here where we see this spike. Okay, that's day number 1430, and 1430 is November 1st. Okay, keep that in mind, November 1st. Now, I know exactly what happened before November 1st, but I'll tell you. So I actually revealed this thing as the secret weapon HEX COM Fusion. I revealed it on October 27th. And then 1 week after I revealed that, I went on a stream with Cabana, and that basically created more awareness around it. However, that awareness did not show up as demand. It showed up as supply, and it showed up as people who wanted to claim their supply and dump it. And by the way, so you're seeing on the chart there that downtrend that Axis is highlighting there, that downtrend started around that time.
Yep, this blue line here is the day. So this was that last final pump candle that came the day after all that hype, and then that increase of supply. We saw people just nuke their bags in typical short-term minded fashion. Oh, this will never work. Johnny's crazy. I'm dumping my comm. And then this was hilarious right here. I got to make fun of this guy. This guy sold like 2.8 quadrillion coins and nuked the price down minus 88% on one candle, and got like $5,000 out of it. And now and then after that wick low, we're up 3,500%. Nice job, buddy. Nice job.
Yeah, so I'm kind of laughing at that because, you know, he sold basically a double whale position for like $3,000.
Crazy.
Yeah, that position now is worth $220,000 of value. He sold it for $3,000. Can you believe that? Wow.
These are the kind of behaviors we see in crypto all the time.
Right.
But this is why. So I'm regretful that the education couldn't be more expeditious, I guess. But this is a
It
process,
will.
right? You know, but as we get more educated on this, you will see the possibilities. You will see it, and so that downtrend there that Axis just highlighted before we kind of got this V bottom recovery sort of thing. That downtrend represents an increase in supply as people claim their supply. It was a 40% inflation on the supply in a matter of 2 months. And the reason that 40% inflation came is because basically I brought the awareness to the fact that you have free money that can be claimed. And so everybody claimed, took their free money. And as soon as that hype wave, I'm calling it a hype wave of free claims, once they were done claiming, and now we no longer have that hype wave of inflation basically on the supply, well, look at what the price is doing since then. And it's just looking to be the beginning of that. So
Yeah, we go back to the coupon rate here. Like we're right now crossing the 15% coupon rate, and the next level here, 20%. This 20% coupon rate isn't so far away. We've already been to 30% before, so I mean, we could see this within days. Any kind of supply that gets claimed and minted and dumped will get absorbed because the liquidity pools have increased by a factor of 5 to 10x. I don't know the actual number, but we need to figure that. We need to find that figure because we've seen guys come in and dump the same 2 quadrillions during this run up here, and it did nothing to price. Like this was at least a few quadrillions in both of these cases, but it didn't get that wick low like we did here. So the liquidity pools are deepening. People are understanding it. They want to back it. Very, very bullish times for the COM price.
yeah, and I like to say that cryptocurrencies are only as useful as they're adopted, which basically means this thing is, in my opinion, the most powerful cryptocurrency we've ever seen. But remember, as I say that, this can't exist without HEX. And remember, I called it the HEX COM Fusion. So it actually makes HEX and COM together the most powerful cryptocurrencies I've ever seen. With that said, we go back to the, what I was saying, that cryptocurrencies are only as useful as they're adopted. So it doesn't really matter how powerful this thing is with its ability to onboard new users and whatnot automatically. If you don't give it any value, then it has no ability to do what it does, which is automatically onboard new users. Just because it does that because nobody denies free money. So if they have free money on the table, they will take it. And while they're taking it, what did they have to do while they were claiming that money? Well, it's proof of commitment. That's actually how I've liked to look at COM. You have these consensus mechanisms with many tokens. Proof of work in Bitcoin. Proof of stake. HEX is proof of weight, and COM is proof of commitment. Okay, so when you are giving value to COM for someone else to come and claim that value, the person who comes and claims that free money, claims that value, they had to prove their commitment. Okay, so what did they do while they were proving their commitment? Well, maybe they didn't know before how to use a DEX, or maybe they didn't know before how to go to hex.com and then get to go.hex.com. They didn't know all these things, and they were never going to learn it because it's too complicated. And even if you tell them it's the greatest thing ever, they're just not going to do it. There's no incentive. Well, now you give them a little bit of free money, and who denies that? And by the way, they will jump through any hurdle that you put in their way to get the free money, because that's literally just how money works. You work for it. So as they're going to show their proof of commitment, what they're going to do is they have to learn how to use the DEX. They have to learn how to go to go.hex.com. They have to start becoming aware of who is Richard Hart and who is this Hexakin community. They have to learn how to stake their HEX and determine for themselves what is the best staking length. What are these things? And basically it's forcing them to learn the system, forcing them to think about the system, forcing them to see the yield that it's going to pay them, because once they've claimed the COM, that means they already made the long-term hex stake, and now they are going to basically want to watch that yield. They're going to want to watch it. So I like to say that the COM, what it does is it's proof of commitment, and what it also does is it forces attention, but it doesn't just force the attention. It forces a call to action in response to the attention that it grabbed. Because if you think about, like, for example, meme coins can go up crazy amounts in price in very short periods of time. Well, when you, for example, look at a price chart that went up a lot in a very short period of time, maybe you're scrolling on Twitter and you see it. You know, people like to brag about the coin that went up a lot. So you see it, you come across it on Twitter, you say, whoa, this coin just went up a lot. Well, you, as the person who it grabbed your attention. It grabbed your attention and you saw it, but did you act on it? Because maybe you don't want to buy tops. You don't want to do that. Or you're like, yeah, I'll just catch it later when it dips, but then you just forget about it. So these other tokens, they can capture your attention, but your attention will quickly dissipate once you've made the decision that, well, I don't want to buy a top, or I don't care, this is just a stupid coin, it doesn't do anything for me. Like, you know that it's going to go down in price, for example, so you're not going to touch it. But in the case of COM, if the COM price spikes up with a huge big candle, and then you present that on Twitter, for example, and you know it catches someone's attention, that attention isn't just attention that just gets dissipated away. It has to be captured attention. Okay? So because there's a call to action, when they see that, they look into it and they realize, wait, I can actually claim this money. I can actually claim this. Oh, so now I need to learn, oh, how do I claim it? Okay, where's the Telegram group? And I can ask questions around. They need to get involved. They need to engage. Oh, okay, so I go to hex.vision. You know, the thought process starts going through their mind of, how do I get this money? And then when they finally close the deal, that's where the proof of commitment comes into play. They have just proved their commitment, and that now they've been entitled to claim their freedom as a result. So the only way that basically green candles get stopped out on COM, besides everyone who holds it rug pulling it for some reason, the only way that value gets extracted is through proof of commitment by new stakers.
Mhm.
Yes, and it is in this way that there's virtually lended value to both COM and HEX in the act of burning away more and more HEX supply. So ultimately, where does the supply limitation come in? It's actually in the burnt HEX supply that gets pushed out to redeem a meaningful start bonus. So one of the things people that are new might get hung up on is like, well, you could just do a loop and redeem forever. Well, yeah, but you're staking for 15 years a bunch of HEX to get any meaningful amount of COM back to dump anyway. And you have to be talking about hundreds of thousands of dollars of HEX staked for 15 years, which burns a shitload of supply to even get a meaningful enough amount of COM to even affect or make a red candle on the COM chart. So what I'm saying is, because it's so undervalued at current prices and the supply is already heavily favoring the quad fathers and not the market. The market is offsides like crazy on this one right now. So yeah, I mean, it's exciting because it's a proposition that none of us can afford to ignore at this point. Why do you, like? That's why I know I've been elated to have this chat here with you guys today, because I think we all kind of see how this is like adding 2 nitrous injectors onto a already working like Lamborghini in the HEX contract. This is a quicker way to absorb supply and get things moving a little bit. You know, amplify the results here a little bit quicker than we thought.
And so you can also ask this question: what's in it for me, right? The average person. Well, what's in it for you, aside from bringing new users in, right? Is if you're doing the staking of the COM, remember you get 5%. Now there's some criteria that's got to be met, but you get a 5% APY on that. But for somebody who's maintaining a HEX, using HEX the way it's supposed to be used, as a staking mechanism, as a ladder, and you're actually doing that and you're maintaining that ladder, you're able to create a COM income equivalent to 5% of whatever your COM staked is. Now imagine that. guys, like a whole nother stream of potential where you can pull COM out over time, strategically, right, without hurting the price for other uses.
Let me just rephrase it because it might have went over people's heads. So basically, when you go to claim COM, you do get the option to stake COM. That's claimed. The moment you claim it, you can choose to stake it for up to 5% APY. I think. Correct me if I'm wrong, Codeak. And and if you go market buy it off the market, you can't stake market bought COM. You can only hold it or hope to God somebody adds it, makes some other utility down the road, which besides price up, well, that's already an amazing utility in and of itself. The Axis token's perfect proof of that. And so, I mean, it's
you also
income streams on income streams here potentially.
Yeah. Also, your staked COM, if you unstake it, you cannot restake those COM tokens. That's crazy.
It's just sticky as hell, isn't it?
Yep.
It's not. I like it, Brian. I like it that way because it's very simple and clean. It's simple and clean, you know. So every time I get one that comes up with a bonus, that's what I do: is stake 100%, and then if, you know, someday in the future, I may peel some out, and maybe I put it in LP. I'm already doing some of that, but I mean, maybe I put it in LP. Maybe I swap it for more HEX.
Yeah, Codeak likes to call this relationship a one-way circuit to staking all of the HEX supply.
Yep. Well said. Imagine no HEX supply, guys.
Yeah, and you know, and knowing that we're talking about how sometimes this ratio would affect things as people would move out of COM. If HEX is going up 100x, I'm okay with COM only going up 20x.
Yeah, good luck with that one. We'll see you at 200x.
I know. Yeah. You think different. I'm using that like super conservative
Here's the thing number that I think people might also want to know is like here on like the COM HEX chart, the higher COM goes on the coupon rate, eventually there's going to be a snapback where HEX is going to go up in USD value, and COM could be just flat in price, but it's going to push the coupon rate down because all that means is HEX went up while COM went flat against the dollar. So I know that's like kind of complex what I just said, but if you can visualize it for a second, the COM chart's going up, the HEX chart's going up, but then HEX overperforms and has a huge green candle, and COM's just going sideways against the dollar. That relationship where HEX is up here and COM is in this range means that the coupon rate temporarily went down, which means you got less dollar value back for staking for a time. But again, what you're going to see is that over time, both COM and HEX are going to rotate going up like this against each other because they're both going to rise in dollar value. It's the same way with bonded liquidity, why Pulse, PulseX, Inc., and HEX all move together because they're all bonded by the same liquidity. And all that really matters is at the end of the day is how many dollars is on the bridge at the end of the day and how much is being kept in the system. And so in bull markets, this is great, which brings up a great point that we can talk about now about bear market potentials here. And I don't know if you want to address this one, Johnny, this question that's up.
So is it possible for the community to come together and increase the coupon rates during a bear market to reduce the impact of the bear? So actually, that's when it's the easiest to do that. That's actually why COM is going up in price so easily right now, is because the cheaper the price of HEX is, the cheaper the maximum cost of the marketing is at the 100% coupon rate. So there's a, once you get to the maximum, the 100% coupon rate, which is basically where you are now officially onboarding new users for free or automatically because nobody's going to deny free money. Once you get there, there is a market cap on COM. And if that, and obviously if those market caps are very high, then it is harder to sustain. And if it's very low, it's easier to sustain. And it becomes low at the 100% coupon rate when HEX is cheap. So since HEX is cheap right now, it's easier to get to those higher coupon rates.
Exactly.
Now, I don't want to make that sound scary where it's like, okay, so as things get more expensive, then, it becomes harder. And that's not the case. There's no reason this can't go to billions and billions of dollars, because this is network marketing with a 100% efficiency. That's what this is, and it's the first time something like this has ever existed. 100% capital efficiency in network marketing. Okay? All of the value that comes into COM has to get that proof of commitment, which is where the 100% efficiency comes from. Okay? So
can you imagine, Johnny, the first time we see somebody copies it to use it? Use the methodology. That'd be awesome.
You said if they copy it?
Yeah, the COM approach, and then start using it. That'd be awesome.
So that's the interesting other thing too. You can start thinking, well, what if people copy it? And then you would, it's just so like, whichever one has the most value already has the most value, right? Like,
Yeah, the first mover.
it's the first mover.
Yeah.
So yeah, you can try all you want to copy it, and maybe you fail. I don't know.
The hardest part is getting that next round of whales to jump into the new thing. Like, I'll give you an example of like, so we ran into this situation with communists from Ethereum being bridged into Pulse Chain, and that there's this arbitrary limitation on the bridge, which would only allow for 500 billion communists from Ethereum to be bridged into Pulse Chain per day, which created this like artificial supply squeeze on what was actually could be inflated into the bridged in supply per day, right? And so where am I going with this? I forgot. What did you just say about
yeah, the copyability of this. So like,
the copyability of it. Okay, yeah. So then somebody created a new token called GCOM, which allowed you to stake which allowed you to bridge in 1,000 times the amount. So I think it was a trillion COM per 1 GCOM. So all this guy did was he creatively changed the units so that 1 GCOM equals 1 trillion COM on Ethereum. So that you were able to now get across to Pulse Chain with the value of 1 trillion COM, being the unit change there. And so you could actually bridge in theoretically an unlimited or 500 billion GCOMs, which is a trillion units times however many GCOMs you bridge in. So basically this guy solved the problem of the bridge limitations, but he created a new asset in the process, and then nobody cared. So like nobody is using GCOM. And that's the problem with creating new things, is you need community around it. Cryptocurrencies only work because there's backing there.
Yeah.
Yeah. There's something we haven't touched on I think this might be a good time to touch on it. So I know that it's hard to wrap your head around the question of why you would want to add value to this. Like, you say to yourself, I just want my HEX. I want to stake my HEX. I don't want to give any value to COM. I want to just stake the HEX. Well, the scarcity of COM is such that it has the same correlation in value to HEX that the T-share has versus HEX. And we know that the T-share price is something that literally can only go up versus HEX. It's only capable of going up and to the right versus HEX. So when you have a correlation like that, it can get thrown off, basically a deviation from that value. So, if someone wants to come in and dump it, they can, and it would deviate from the value that the T-share rate said it should be. However, that would just show up as a deviation, right? That would be value that someone else can pick up, and so because it's more scarce than HEX. When you look at the price of it versus HEX as a ratio, there isn't really any reason that it shouldn't be able to go up and to the right versus HEX the same way that the T-share does. Even if that up and to the right pathway has volatility because there's people who like to just dump for reasons unknown. So there's value that can be captured on those deviations when COM becomes too cheap in price relative to HEX. Now, what does that mean? That means that there is a potential here. It's really not a potential. It's basically, as long as COM is adopted and has the backing by the community, then what would happen is, so you know what? Access, can we bring up my screen? So I'm on apphex.win, and over here you can look at the T-share rate here. Oh gosh, T-share rate, where are we? Here's T-share rate, okay. I'm gonna, for some reason my computer, I guess I'm on stream and the computer wants to act up. So this is a trajectory of the T-share rate. And I know those are hard to see. So instead of that, I'm just gonna bring up this, actually, because I've already laid it out here. Let me reshare my screen, Access. Sorry, I just need to get to my spreadsheet. So
Yeah, no problem. I can pull up the share rate for a second too while you're getting that going.
Okay.
Here's the share rate.
Okay, I got it. Okay, so over here, we have that same chart I was just trying to bring up on apphex.win. This is projecting the T-share rate versus HEX over the course of the next 15 years. And as you can see, it only goes up and to the right. Okay. Now, when you break down the projection, I'm going to zoom into this. And here's the projection year over year. So right now, to start 2024, this is a little old. So it was projected to be higher than what it actually is. Right now, it's at 32,000. So don't worry so much about the actual numbers here. Pay more attention to column C here. This is the year over year increase that the T-share is projected to have over HEX over the course of the next year. So for 2024, this year, by the end of this year, we should see a 15% rise in the T-share rate. What does this mean when it comes to COM? When it comes to COM, what this means is because COM's value has a 1-to-1 ratio, 1-to-1 correlation with the T-share rate in HEX, it means that COM's value should be able to rise 15% versus HEX over the course of the next year. At a minimum, obviously it can do more than that, but at a very minimum, it should be capable of rising 15% versus HEX. What does that tell you? That tells me that when you compare that to a 1-year HEX stake, it's beating it. So I've got down here that a 1-year HEX stake currently pays about 9 to 10% yield. But guess what? The T-share rate beats that at the 15%. So what did that just do? It just made staking HEX for 1 year completely obsolete. Now, the only way, so I use the word completely. I'm going to actually omit that word because the only way that it doesn't do that is, again, like I said, cryptocurrencies are only as useful as they're adopted. And so if COM isn't adopted and no one's giving it value, then it does not need to track the share rate. It'll just be zero. But if it has the value, if someone's giving it value and the community's giving it value, then that value should be able to track the T-share rate. And so therefore, you have a 15% year over year increase beating out the 1 year, and you just made 1 year stakes obsolete because instead you should be in COM.
Bingo.
Yep.
And look at how long that lasts for. This goes on above that 9% yield all the way through the year 2030, which means you have 1 year stakes being obsolete until the year 2031. And that's not to say it's going to stop there. It could just keep on going like that forever. So you can make short-term staking completely obsolete, and HEX should become a thing where you only see long-term stakes. And when we get to that idealism where we think we can burn all the HEX off the market, this is how you envision that.
Yep.
But wait, there's more. There's more. Right? Because you can't get COM unless you stake HEX. You can't get, I mean, you can buy some on
You
the
can't
market
mint
now,
it.
but it won't be there. You can't get it without staking more HEX.
Exciting, guys.
So
Is it going to blow up? It's going to blow up.
Yeah, so let's we're coming up on 2 hours. Let's wrap this. We're definitely have to do a part 2 probably next week to go deeper into the for the giga nerds that want to know more about the LP side of things and the market making for this and really want to help. You know, if you're a whale in Hex and you want to help bootstrap this thing, maybe we'll do like a more of a in-depth look into the spreadsheets that Johnny's procured over the last 8 or so months, and kind of go through the math of all of the secret weapon pools. But for tonight, let's just wrap up on. I want to take the final conversation piece of like what's the theoretical if, let's say an OA or a Godwell was to back the coupon rate at 75%, and I will post that into the chat so we can pull it up, and you guys can just kind of talk back and forth on your thoughts around that.
You say you want to bring that up right now?
Yeah, we're coming up on 2 hours. We'll close her out.
Yeah, I'm going to head out, boys. Axis, thank you so much, bro, for having me on. It was great to be on here with you guys.
Yeah, Brian, appreciate you, man. Thanks for bringing the fire, and I'm happy to have you back on here.
Cool. Let's make it happen. All right, boys.
Cheers, man. We'll see you in the Telegram. Peace.
Yep.
All right. So imagine the possibilities of the OA supporting COM. How capable are the largest players of supporting a 75% plus coupon rate for 15 years straight?
Yep. So yeah, you. So this whole thing, we've been talking through this, and we haven't really even touched on the spreadsheet, going into the math, going into the proofs of why this works, things of that sort. And basically, when you get into that, which I think we'll reserve for another time, I've already seen plenty of questions in the comments that kind of reveal that people maybe need some time to wrap their head around things already. So I wouldn't want to confuse people even more. But basically, so to put this very simply on, like, when you want to imagine the possibilities of what the OA could do. So when it comes to supporting COM as an automatic marketing system for Hex, you'll notice that you don't really need to use new money to support COM. You can actually use your HEX and put your HEX to work to support COM. So that means that large HEX holders can do a lot of the supporting for the COM price. Now, who's the largest HEX holder? Well, we have Godwell, who really just showed that he is aware of COM as a system and that he has a huge supply, and maybe he wants to reinforce the value that he can get from COM later into the future. But you also have the OA, who has even more HEX than the Godwell by far. And so if you imagine, and without getting into the complicated math behind this, if you imagine that on his own, the Godwell could support, using his HEX, could support a price, a coupon rate of, say, 15 to 20%. Well, the OA, I've actually worked it out that the OA, if he were to use all his HEX, or if the OA were to use all of its HEX, would be able to support a coupon rate of 75%. And so imagine the marketability of HEX if you have a consistent 75% coupon rate, where you make a 15-year stake and you're getting 75% back, and now you can actually really keep doing that over and over again at that 75% rate, because as you're claiming and selling the COM, it's not even breaking that 75% coupon rate, because the OA would be supporting it with such a huge amount of coins. Okay. Now, it does bring the OA's coins into the market, because as people claim the COM and then sell it for the HEX that the OA has put up, it actually brings the OA's coins into the supply of the market. However, this is what we can touch on another time, would be the strategies that can be used to brute force profitability. And by brute force profitability, what I mean is brute forcing the value of HEX up, brute forcing the price of HEX up. And so basically the OA would be capable of supporting a 75% coupon rate in such a way that the supply that people are taking from the OA, bringing the OA's supply into the market, the amount of supply that they have to burn ends up being in excess of the amount that the OA is bringing into the market by doing that. And so they are burning more supply than what they are receiving back. Because again, even though that's 75% coupon rate, any coupon rate that is under 100% acts as a net value add on the two systems as a whole.
So theoretically, if the OA took action, that could happen, right? But
Theoretical. Yeah, all three, all theoretical.
What if we said the OA is not going to do anything? What do we have the ability to do as a community? Have you looked that deep?
Sorry about that. What's that?
What could we do if we don't include the OA, but maybe consider the God whale and the rest of us? What could we do to drive a coupon rate into a state where it stays stable for 15 years like that?
I think we're already seeing that, right? As a community, we're seeing value get added to COM already. We're seeing the coupon rate rising. The secret weapon pools that I made on the PHUX platform are there and they can be used. And if you are aware of where we are in the coupon rate, which we hope to make all of that more visible to the wider audience, when you're aware of the coupon rate, you can then just join the coupon rate pool according to what coupon rate it's at. That would be a good way to support the price. It's just important to know that when you're doing that, you are more heavily allocated into HEX. But if COM has more of the upside to it, then maybe you would want to actually just be buying and holding COM instead. And so when you ask what can we do to help as a community, I think it's continue to add value to COM, whether that's backing the price with liquidity or buying and holding. But also getting the word out too and using the referral program. That's one thing I keep forgetting to touch on more is the referral program is very big. It's a big deal, and use that referral program. If you don't want to even be a buyer of COM or HEX or anything, literally someone who doesn't even own COM or HEX can actually participate in this referral program. And you could just basically give yourself a job and become a referee. So you make yourself, when you go to that communis.app webpage, you'll see on the bottom of the dashboard, when you connect your wallet, that it gives you a referral link that you can then spread out to others through word of mouth. You can let people know, hey, use this link, go claim some COM after staking your HEX. So yeah, using that referral program would be huge.
Yeah, and the guy who referred the God whale, I think he became an instant quadrillionaire.
Yes.
Instantly. I mean.
Yes.
So crazy.
That's crazy, man. Holy
crap. Didn't even touch on it. There's so many things to touch on that we're missing a bunch of stuff. But the God whale claimed today, and somebody received a referral for that, and the referral on that claim was massive. It was big enough to instantly turn that referee into a whale income.
That's pretty crazy. Too bad we didn't have more God whales.
Close to a quadrillion. I think it was like 980 trillion, something of that. Something close to that.
Good on him, man. Good on him.
For sure. Hey, last thing I just wanted to we'll leave you guys with out there that are, for those of you that are sticking around, maybe just we'll give you some actionable on the chart information here. Crispy does a lot of work to bring us really great tools for measuring when a price is in a good buy area or in a good sell area. And so we'll pull up the Mayer multiple on the COM price chart quick, and then we'll close out with that.
Yeah, sure. So I'm showing right now. I've kind of zoomed into the Mayer multiple in USD terms, and so we are definitely in an overbought circumstance, but we think it can keep going. Well, I say overbought, but what I mean is, using those old measurements from Bitcoin of a Mayer multiple of 2.4, which is the ratio of current price to the 200-day moving average. And so you can see on our little chart here, the Mayer multiples in blue. It did peak out, back in October at a 9 type of a number, 12, 13, and then it's come back down. And we're currently sitting over here at 4.65, so it's pretty high. But notoriously, because we look at this type of stuff every day, I guess I call it notorious. But looking at the price impulse, we haven't quite gotten yet to that level, right? So we're down here at 2.23. So for those of us who've been holding bags of pulse and they're not working, not being put to work right now, a swap into COM is still not an overbought situation. And then just kind of like backing out a little bit, comparing COM to USD, we're well over that 2.4. So presumably, as I said, that 2.4 Mayer multiple overbought, and we're also overbought on Pulse Chain against Ethereum and Bitcoin.
But the ludicrousness of all this is that nobody even really knew about COM until today, basically. So I mean the fact that you can look back on the dollar version of this and look at how overextended the Mayer got last time. And these Mayer charts, they're really meant for after 200 days of data and starting it at that point. So I mean this may not even this might be just the start of another run, basically. So it's in the buy zone now, but it could it might have more legs to run. So anyway, good luck to everybody trying to become a quad father. We will appreciate you. We'll welcome you with open arms. And, with that, Codeak, Johnny Sachs, Crispy Man, appreciate you guys for joining me today. Do I have you guys back for one more of these where we go a little deeper? Maybe next week?
Anytime.
Of course.
All right.
Good thing.
Yep.
Awesome. All right, guys. Well, let's wrap it up here. 2 hours in. Hope you guys learned something about COM and the COM HEX Fusion. Next week, maybe we'll come back with the secret weapon pools and the market making stuff. And appreciate everyone for being involved and spread the word. All right. We'll talk to you guys soon. Peace.
Later.
See?